will be on the general election ballot despite an attempt to block her candidacy by an ally of current Mayor Tiffany Henyard, who is
a mayoral candidate being challenged.
Tiffany Henyard, the self-proclaimed super mayor of Dalton, has finally surrendered after a bombshell FBI raid exposed years of hidden corruption, revealing how she lived a lavish lifestyle funded by taxpayer dollars while her town spiraled into financial ruin. The residents of Dalton were left to struggle as their community faced a $36 million deficit, a direct result of Henyard's reckless financial mismanagement. Her extravagant lifestyle, funded by public funds, came crashing down as she now faces up to 25 years in prison on 22 federal charges, including the misappropriation of funds and the concealment of millions of taxpayer dollars. The FBI had been investigating Henyard for months, following subpoenas and corruption rumors, before uncovering a shocking picture of financial negligence. One of the most blatant examples of her misuse of taxpayer money occurred in September 2023, when Henyard went on a shopping spree that cost over $7,700, spending taxpayer money at stores like Target, Walgreens, and Wayfair. This was just one of many excessive spending sprees. Henyard also repeatedly opted for premium travel experiences, choosing lavish upgrades over economy flights, even bringing along a professional hair and makeup team, expenses all paid for by the town. Meanwhile, Dalton's financial health collapsed under her leadership, draining a $5.6 million surplus in a single year and pushing the town to the brink of bankruptcy. Henyard's reign of excess didn't stop there. Her administration wasted over $112,000 in travel expenses alone, further crippling the town's fragile finances. But perhaps the most shocking example of her abuse of power was the $561,000 payment made to pave her mother's driveway, a staggering amount pulled directly from the town's budget. As Dalton's resources were drained, even more troubling was the fact that Dalton's police force, tasked with protecting the community, was repurposed as Henyard's personal security detail. Officers, who should have been patrolling the streets to protect residents, were instead running errands and following Henyard like VIPs, leaving crime unchecked and further destabilizing the community. Henyard's downfall began when a former police chief, unable to stay silent any longer after witnessing the blatant misuse of funds, blew the whistle on her actions. The truth about her corruption was finally exposed to the public, showing how Henyard had been misusing taxpayer money for personal gain. As she now faces the legal consequences of her actions, the citizens of Dalton are left to pick up the pieces of a town ravaged by greed. Their trust in her, once solid, has been shattered, and they must now navigate the aftermath of a financial disaster that threatens their community's future. Dalton's town hall, once a hub of civic life, now stands locked and empty, a grim reminder of Henyard's reign of greed and deceit. One of the most eye-opening revelations about Henyard's lavish spending was her hosting of an extravagant party for the town, despite her credit card privileges being revoked. This event, which cost taxpayers a staggering $555,000, featured performances by artists Wyatt and Jay Holiday, who were paid $30,000 and $20,000, respectively, for 30-minute sets. To make matters worse, Henyard spent an additional $36,000 on sound systems, staff, equipment, comedians, and even bouncy houses costing $6,600 for an event that only attracted about 70 people. This brazen misuse of taxpayer money has sparked public outrage, and as Henyard faces the consequences of her actions, the people of Dalton are left to grapple with the staggering fallout of her corruption. What was once a community with hope for the future is now struggling to rebuild after nearly being destroyed by the greed and dishonesty of its former leader. The story of Henyard's rise and fall has become a cautionary tale, illustrating the devastating impact of corruption on local governments and the lives of citizens who placed their trust in elected officials. Outrage among Dalton residents has reached a boiling point, with many voicing their frustration over Henyard's extravagant spending, which has left the community in financial ruin. Jennifer Roberts, a concerned citizen, expressed her dismay over the mayor's lavish expenditures, while former trustee Valeria Stubbs condemned Henyard's recent event as a wasteful self-promotion scheme. Henyard's apparent disregard for fiscal responsibility has only deepened public distrust, and now both taxpayers and federal investigators are closely monitoring her every move. However, the real twist in the story came when Henyard's former ally, Carmen Carrile, stepped forward as a whistleblower with explosive evidence. Carrile, who had witnessed Henyard's misuse of Dalton's funds over the course of 2 years, became a key figure in the investigation. After initially staying silent, Carrile handed over a stack of receipts to federal authorities, exposing the mayor's schemes and financial mismanagement. Carile's testimony has served as a bombshell, shedding light on Henyard's alleged efforts to promote herself at the public's expense, further fueling public outrage. Critics like Stubbs have highlighted the stark contrast between Henyard's extravagant spending and the limited turnout at community events, which only intensified the anger of Dalton's residents. Public frustration has reached new heights, with many demanding justice for Dalton's residents, who have been suffering as the town's finances crumbled under Henyard's leadership. Despite the mounting criticism, Henyard has shown no signs of slowing down, leading many to believe that the scandal will only escalate. The FBI, now armed with Carile's first-hand account, has placed Henyard under intense scrutiny, examining every aspect of her administration, from her lavish lifestyle funded by taxpayer dollars to her expensive trips and personal security detail, which resembled that of a Hollywood celebrity. Federal authorities are also investigating her financial dealings, including her commercial ventures and campaign finances, as part of a wider web of connections involving Henyard and her political allies. This investigation has shone a spotlight on everyone who may have been complicit in the alleged corruption, and the people of Dalton, long demanding transparency, are finally beginning to see their calls answered. As the investigation unfolds, it is becoming clear that Henyard's time in office may be nearing a dramatic and scandalous end. With legal and public scrutiny closing in on her, residents are left to pick up the pieces of their community, struggling with the aftermath of her actions. The full extent of her alleged financial mismanagement is expected to come to light, bringing far-reaching consequences for both Henyard and those connected to her controversial administration. Activists like Brittany Norwood have been vocal in their criticism, amplifying the frustration of residents who have watched their town suffer under Henyard's leadership. For these residents, the FBI's intervention feels like a long overdue response to their desperate cries for help. But many are left wondering why justice has taken so long, despite the overwhelming evidence and growing public outrage. Throughout the investigation, Henyard has continued to present an image of business as usual, even as pressure mounts. Her defiance only fuels public anger, as residents see her becoming increasingly disconnected from the harsh realities they face. Meanwhile, the FBI has reportedly used advanced surveillance techniques to track potential wrongdoing, not only by Henyard, but also by her political allies. As the investigation deepens, rumors have circulated that several others with ties to Henyard may soon face similar scrutiny. The scale of the FBI's investigation has sent shockwaves through Dalton. Residents who have long watched their town teeter on the brink of financial collapse are now grappling with the shocking realization that many of the people they once trusted may have been complicit in a sprawling web of corruption. But in a surreal twist, Tiffany Henyard stunned the town with a dramatic, unexpected move, leaving the community to wonder what the next chapter in this unfolding scandal will bring. Henyard's voluntary surrender to the FBI marked a sudden, unexpected shift in the investigation. It captured the public's attention and sparked intense speculation about her motives. Once known for her glamorous persona and extravagant lifestyle, Henyard had appeared untouchable, despite the growing storm of controversy surrounding her. But just when it seemed she might slip through the cracks, she made a dramatic decision: surrendering to federal authorities. This abrupt move left the residents of Dalton stunned and perplexed. Why would Henyard, who had clung so tightly to her opulent lifestyle, suddenly abandon it and step into federal custody? Many speculate that her surrender could be a strategic move to strike a deal with federal prosecutors in exchange for leniency, perhaps offering to expose others involved in her alleged schemes. If that's the case, Henyard's sudden shift could signal a dramatic turn in the scandal. Once seen as untouchable, she now faces the very real prospect of legal consequences. Her decision to surrender not only marks a personal turning point for Henyard, but also signals a shift in Dalton's relationship with its local government. The once invincible mayor's image has been shattered, and her voluntary surrender has given the public a glimmer of hope that justice might finally be served. As Henyard faces federal charges, the fallout from her actions continues to reverberate. Throughout Dalton, a town already struggling with a financial crisis. Now, residents must grapple with the staggering costs of her alleged corruption and the deepening distrust in their leadership. They are left to pick up the pieces, wondering how the town reached this point and what it will take to rebuild its shattered financial reputation. Henyard's rise and fall have become a cautionary tale of corruption, excess, and a betrayal of public trust. Once a community proud of its leadership, Dalton now finds itself reeling from the devastating consequences of unchecked power and greed. With the future uncertain, the people of Dalton are left to rebuild not only their finances, but also their faith in the system that failed them. They hope that, despite the slow-moving wheels of justice, a reckoning for Henyard's actions is on the horizon. Her sudden surrender may mark the first step in Dalton's long road to recovery, but the damage caused by her corruption will take much longer to heal. As federal investigators continue their work, Dalton's residents can only wait and hope that those responsible for the scandal will be held accountable, and that the town can begin the difficult process of restoring its financial stability and faith in local leadership. Henyard's downfall is far from over, but for the people of Dalton, the possibility of justice, however delayed, brings a glimmer of hope amidst the wreckage of their community. The rise and fall of Tiffany Henyard is not just a local scandal. It is an unfolding story with far-reaching consequences. Federal authorities are piecing together the full extent of the alleged corruption, and as more details emerge, it's becoming clear that the investigation will continue to expose the depth of the town's financial mismanagement. With Carmen Carril's testimony and other crucial evidence, the once impregnable web of corruption is beginning to unravel. The people of Dalton are left hoping that justice will finally be served, and that they will be able to rebuild from the wreckage left by Henyard's reckless spending and self-serving behavior. In the end, Henyard's scandal serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the devastating effects of corruption on a community. It highlights the critical need for accountability in leadership and the restoration of public trust. The downfall of Tiffany Henyard has become a powerful symbol of the dangers of unchecked power and the devastating consequences of corruption, leaving Dalton grappling with the fallout of her actions. Once a figure of wealth and authority, Henyard lived a life of luxury funded by taxpayer dollars, traveling in first-class comfort, enjoying personal makeup artists, and indulging in an opulent lifestyle, while the needs of Dalton's community went unmet. Now, she finds herself in a stark jail cell, her once glamorous image shattered, her finances in ruins, and her future uncertain. Reports have surfaced that Henyard can no longer afford to pay her legal bills, leading her lawyer to abandon her case, marking the collapse of her empire. Her rise to power, clouded by controversy and driven by a web of influence and financial mismanagement, was built not to serve the people who elected her, but to benefit herself. Over the years, Henyard allegedly abused her position with mounting evidence of her misuse of public funds and opaque financial dealings within her administration. As the investigation into her actions continues, the residents of Dalton are left to reckon with the lasting damage caused by her reckless decisions. Henyard's eventual surrender to federal authorities, while a glimmer of hope for accountability, marks only the beginning of a long and difficult journey to restore trust in Dalton's government and rebuild the town. Her history of financial recklessness and self-serving behavior has left the town in dire financial straits. Dalton is reportedly nearly $20 million in debt, with millions of dollars unaccounted for. Once a thriving community, it now finds itself reeling from years of corruption and mismanagement. Its residents are left to pick up the pieces of their fractured government and broken economy. In an unprecedented move to salvage the town, Dalton has hired former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot at a hefty rate of $400 per hour to help clean up the mess Henyard created. This step underscores the gravity of the situation, highlighting the monumental task of recovering from the financial disaster Henyard's administration left behind. As the investigation into Henyard's actions unfolds, Dalton's residents are left wondering how long it will take to rebuild their reputation and restore their financial health. The betrayal they feel, having once placed their trust in Henyard, is profound. The consequences of her greed and misuse of public funds are undeniable. In this time of uncertainty, the people of Dalton are left searching for answers and hoping for justice in the face of the wreckage left behind by a leader who abused her power for personal gain. For the people of Dalton, the hope remains that justice will eventually prevail. They long for the truth to come to light, and for those responsible for the town's catastrophic downfall to be held accountable. Henyard's scandal may have shattered the community's faith in its leadership, but it also offers a unique opportunity for change. The ongoing investigation and the potential for more shocking revelations gives the residents of Dalton a glimmer of hope that they might finally see justice served and begin the long process of rebuilding a town devastated by corruption. Henyard's Henyard fall from grace may signal the beginning of Dalton's recovery, but that recovery will be a slow and painful journey. The road ahead will be fraught with challenges, but it also represents a chance to heal, rebuild, and restore integrity to the town's government. As federal authorities continue to follow the trail of evidence, the people of Dalton are left to wonder whether their town can ever recover from the damage caused by one woman's reckless pursuit of power, or if the consequences of her actions will linger for years to come. The fate of Dalton and its future leadership remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: Henyard's scandal has left an indelible mark on the town, one that will likely take years to erase. The state of Dalton's finances paints a grim picture, illustrating just how far the town had fallen under Henyard's leadership. The road to recovery will be long and fraught with obstacles, as the residents try to rebuild not only their finances, but also their trust in the local leadership. Among Tiffany Henyard's most egregious acts was a reported $440,000 spent in a single day on Amazon, an undeniable example of her unchecked financial mismanagement. This revelation has placed Dalton under both federal and state scrutiny. As the town's financial situation spiraled out of control, the Illinois State Comptroller had no choice but to intervene, halting desperately needed payments of $135,000 to the town's residents, a crippling blow that left the people struggling to see a way forward. Even after Henyard's resignation and subsequent surrender to federal authorities, the financial ruin she left behind continues to cast a long shadow over Dalton. The reality is clear: recovery will not be swift. But the damage did not end with financial destruction. Former employees of Henyard's administration have stepped forward with their own damning allegations, including lawsuits claiming wrongful termination for refusing to participate in dubious schemes. One such employee, identified as Bont Trish, is now suing Henyard, further compounding the legal and ethical challenges she faces. These lawsuits are not just a result of Henyard's financial scandals. They also stem from her abusive leadership style, which created a toxic and oppressive environment for those who worked under her. Beyond the financial mismanagement, Henyard's administration has been tainted by disturbing allegations of sexual impropriety during city visits, including claims of sexual assault against staff members and accusations of intimidation against those who dared to oppose her. These revelations have utterly decimated Henyard's previously polished image, replacing it with a portrait of an administration steeped in corruption, abuse of power, and exploitation. The public's outrage deepens with each new revelation, leaving Dalton residents shaken and disgusted by the woman they once trusted to lead them. For the people of Dalton, Seeing Henyard in handcuffs has been a moment of relief, a symbol of reclaiming their town from what many have referred to as an era of doom. However, Henyard's surrender has raised as many questions as it has answered. Many speculate that her decision to turn herself in could be part of a larger strategy, perhaps an attempt to manipulate the system in her favor. Some believe she may be negotiating for a settlement or trying to shield others involved in her schemes. Her continued presence as mayor, despite the mounting criminal charges against her, has raised serious concerns about the integrity of the legal system and the power dynamics at play. The fact that Henyard remained in office despite overwhelming evidence against her suggests that the fight for accountability is far from over. Her defiance and apparent unwillingness to relinquish her position as mayor have only fueled suspicions that she might be attempting to stall justice, using her power to delay the inevitable reckoning. As the FBI continues its investigation, it remains unclear whether Henyard's voluntary surrender will lead to the full exposure of the corruption that permeated her administration. In the meantime, the residents of Dalton are left to grapple with the fallout from years of financial mismanagement, abuse of power, and exploitation. The road to recovery for Dalton will be long and difficult, with many questions still unanswered. As Henyard faces federal charges, the town watches closely, hoping that the legal system will finally hold her accountable for her actions. The saga of Henyard's fall from grace continues to unfold, and the people of Dalton are left wondering whether the town can ever fully recover from the damage she caused, or if the shadows of her leadership will continue to haunt them for years to come. With each new revelation, the story becomes even more chilling, exposing the depths of Henyard's alleged corruption and the toll it has taken on the town she was supposed to serve.